Quick! Our only chance to save Terry is to get his brain into a rat's body! I'll chew it out!
Please don't. You're already eating him. Okay.
There was once a time where Borderlands was far too hard of a video game for me to play. This strange period occurred during my childhood and ended up invading my adult life, affecting the other games I enjoyed playing at that time. With lots of practice though, I've been able to pull myself out of this tired rut again and again just to talk about a game I've already covered. But for good reason. I love Borderlands 3, and I'm tired of pretending I don't. In my review for the bastard sequel to the amazing one, I made it clear that Borderlands 3 wasn't necessarily a better game after its highly successful predecessor. It flopped harder than a piece of poop out of a bird's butt on a sidewalk, and many fans were upset with its uninspired and boring lore. Obviously, I'm gonna comment on a lot of different things here, but if you guys know me, you know I like to discuss the good stuff first. What else can be said about Borderlands that hasn't already been covered? Probably nothing, but I have my own spin to things. I know the storyline for the third game is crusty poop shit water, but the biggest guilty pleasure I have is wanting to kill the twins. All throughout the campaign, they constantly nag and belittle your character, knowing damn well that they're just gonna get fucking swamped in less than a minute if the player could. While they're both extremely annoying to deal with and don't offer any sort of invigorating detail or effect to the plot like Handsome Jack did, it helped to keep me invested in going on. I really, really wanted to fight the Calypso twins and end their regime with my two bare hands. The hatred I feel for those two characters bothers me to an extent that I'd probably never be able to describe in words. Both Tyreen and Troy Calypso have excellent voice actors, but it's the writing that ruins the cheap, sarcastic, and nihilistic tones of the series. Not to spoil anything, but near the end of the game, Tyreen tries way too hard to switch her tone from silly, goofy to serious. Jack, in the second game, did this as well, but only after you killed his daughter for the sake of the rebellion. So it made sense that he began hating you even more as you progressed to the vault by the end of the game. Borderlands 3 felt like it didn't even try to write interesting characters for its very interesting world. You want to know the most memorable quote from any of the characters? It comes from some random NPC in Moxie's bar, but it made me laugh really hard.
Why won't anyone listen to me? I'm screaming as loud as I can!
What the hell is he even talking about? That feels way more in tune with Borderlands than... whatever the fuck they were trying here.
Don't expect mercy, superfan. I'm not that kind of god.
So, yeah, story's crap. Now that we've eaten the vegetables, we can move on to the cheesecake and dissect some more great things hidden inside the top layer. I mentioned it briefly in my last Borderlands 3 video, but those guns are designed by some of the most creative talent to exist ever. I kid you not, I'd pick up some of these rifles or shotguns and stare at them for quite a few minutes in awe of how great they look. This could just be a Borderlands thing, but there isn't a single firearm that acts or feels the same as another. The micro animations that occur along the more obscure designed guns are very interesting and add a nice aesthetic to the gameplay overall. I don't know what the fuck that bulb is doing, it's shaped like a skull and it keeps rotating indefinitely, but it looks cool. Bet you can't find me a real-life AR-15 that has something like that. Other guns look like they fell into a vat of acid or perhaps fused with some kind of alien creature of unknown origin. Imagine owning something that looked like it was breathing and was capable of shooting bullets at people. Kinda scary. You can also change the look of most of your gear by either visiting the new U station at Sanctuary or simply accessing your inventory tab. Here you can inspect each individual weapon and put a new skin on it to show off in front of your grandma, who's probably watching you play from the couch in the other room. Anyway, there are tons of options when it comes to making your gear feel personalized. Charms, skins, and simply continuing the story will unlock new options for you in all sorts of ways. Doing so will cost you a lot of iridium, which is fine considering you'll be doing lots of exploring. To get iridium, you walk up to these deposits and smash them, after obtaining the object from the story mission, that is. I want to talk about something real quick. When Borderlands 4 was announced, I immediately hopped onto the third installment because I don't own the second game on Steam, yet I played the hell out of it in my younger years. I never commented on it before, but the game does have some cinematic battles and very satisfying moments. Playing as the gunner, your special ability is the mech suit, capable of utilizing a crazy combination of weapons, including but not limited to a flamethrower, a rocket launcher with homing functionality, and a grenade thrower that devastates enemies, tossing them 25 feet in the goddamn air. It's the most effective way of clearing an area or fighting tougher enemies. The mech does not mess around, and the fuel lasts a century if you're upgrading the correct skill trees. I'll be honest, I kind of just blindly spent skill points without warning, but each and every option is useful regardless. Not even Borderlands 2 makes me feel as powerful as this game does. Using the mech can also save your life. If your health is just above 0, you can activate the mech and prevent entering fight for your life mode. It's kind of a low ball move, but sometimes that's the name of the game. Nobody ever played fair in a gunfight, right? The environment is ripe for exploration, and much like the previous games, I found myself invested in Borderlands 3's massive, appealing atmosphere full of vicious wildlife at every turn, and massive cliffs that the player can happily leap from without the fear of fall damage. The open world here is very up to par with that classic Borderlands feel. There are tons of mutations and species of monster that I could spend hours talking about, but I'll only mention a few for now. The Jabbers are these species of dangerous monkey that can climb around the environments they inhabit and throw shit at you. Since this is a Borderlands title, you can expect to come across different elemental variants of these monsters, amongst others. Sir Hammerlock has a major favor to ask of you, which is to eliminate a great deal of unfortunate insubordinates, special mini-boss variants of other enemies you'll encounter in the open world. These creatures are extremely powerful, ranging in size and aggression. The toughest one I personally came across was the Mother of Grogans and her pet dragons. Who the fuck are these assholes supposed to be? Spyro, Cinder, and their unnamed cousin? It doesn't matter what gun you try to use because they fly all over the place like drunk airplane pilots. It's a shame that even the mech can't do much to them while they're in the air. Little shits fucking flying around all the goddamn time. There's also an enemy known as the Indo-Tyrant, clearly inspired by the Indominus Rex from one of the shitty Jurassic Park sequels. It's a cool animal in retrospect, and pretty terrifying to fight on foot. You have to play it really safe in order to survive, stay one step ahead of him by sprinting every so often, try to find a large rock to gain a height advantage. He's tough, but not impossible to kill. It's even better when you have a buddy to play with. Thanks again to the guys who helped me make this video possible just by adding me to their shift accounts. I had a lot of fun with them, and I can only hope they're still enjoying the game as much as I was. I already ranted about the lame storyline when I discussed and reviewed Borderlands 3, but to briefly go over it some more, I want to add a few things. The Calypso twins, while remaining uninteresting, continuously nag and belittle the player, as I mentioned before, interrupting the story with useless dialogue and really cringe cutscenes. Fighting and killing them was the most fascinating experience in the whole fucking game. Just to hear them no longer speak is such bliss. Oh, great. Merely mentioning the antagonists of our game has sent me into a deranged lunacy where I must now comment on the negative aspects again. Didn't really take that long, did it? Earlier I said there are plenty of cinematic moments throughout the game that will definitely appeal to fans of the series, and here are a few of my highlights. The Gravemind is a massive warrior-like beast with a rotten, tree-like appearance. I liked fighting him as it was pretty obvious that the developers cared about the art being showcased here. I feel like I accidentally swallowed a light bulb. But unfortunately, great scenes are overshadowed by awful ones pretty commonly. There's one major flaw that Borderlands 3 suffers from, and that's its own runtime. The game throws players into 4 or 5 false endings before finally granting you some fucking mercy. I'm not kidding, they even tried to go the route that every stupid game does with the whole team getting knocked out or killed or whatever, and Tyreen breaks the camera in an attempt to look like a cool edgelord. Then it says, "To be continued in Borderlands 4. 3, 2... Ha 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 ha. Real fucking funny. Do they think we're 5? Like, just end the game already. I'm over it. I think the lead developer of the game had a rough time accepting what he wanted for an ending, so he just brainstormed 5 shitty ideas and said, yeah, each and every one of those is good enough, put them all in. And also, make the player fight tedious bosses back to back in order to officially call it good. It really does give a lot of depth to how big the buildup was for Handsome Jack. There are plenty of crazy boss fights before you face him personally, but I don't recall fighting 2 Titan-sized monstrosities just before facing the fucking warrior. This seemed a bit like overkill in my opinion, but then again, I haven't really played another Borderlands title for years. There's a lot of grinding at the epilogue of the game's story, but it feels unnecessary, like they were just trying to pad for timing. Speaking of which, during a boss fight, they'll sometimes enter a weird phase of invincibility, and none of your guns do any damage in the slightest. Why did they decide to do this? If they wanted me to gun my way through every encounter, as they did with every other Borderlands title, why bother giving the villain an advantage like this? You're just forced to stand aside and let them have their fun. Granted, the player has this same level of power with the standard grunts, but but I found it to be a bit theatrical and over the top for the boss battles to go on for so long due to the invincibility shit. And to be honest, a lot of the bosses aren't that hard. Most of the groundwork involves shooting and sliding away from projectiles. When I fought the warrior for the first time, I must have died 1,000 fucking ways to Sunday. I still vaguely recall it being a tasking endgame fight that took a lot of my personal time to beat. Majority of the bosses in Borderlands 3 won't give you a hard time, but that's not really how interesting villains are developed. Their tactics only change at the intervals where they're invincible. Some will outright let you deal damage to them for a brief amount of time, which I've never been a fan of. It always feels cheap and awkward. During the Grave Ward fight and Tyrene's fight, there were 2 instances where both bosses just fell to their fucking knees, giving me ample time and opportunity to damage them. It's weird. And yeah, spoiler alert, sorry, Tyrene is the final boss of the game, and she ends up becoming one with the Destroyer. This creature is rumored to be strong enough to eat planets and destroy civilization, yet I killed it without even so much as entering fight for your life. She hardly changes the way she comes after you. I'd argue that fighting those rare, uncommon creatures for Hammerlock is far more fun than progressing the main story if you're looking for something challenging. The annoying companion banter is back, full fucking force. While I do like Borderlands for its tremendous voice acting and sometimes excellent writing, there are quite a few moments where you're trying not to rip your hair out because someone has been speaking to you for the past 10 minutes and they won't shut up. Have you had enough complaints? Well, here's another. You don't have many interesting side quests in Borderlands 3. Instead, many of them involve someone trying too hard to be funny. However, I think that the funniest quest belongs to the one where you have to help a Ratch named Glenn resurrect his dead friend, Terry.
Hey, Gary got out! I'm gonna stay up here and maybe you go kill him and do the brain transfer thing? Hey, Gary's dead! Awesome! Now go put Terry's brain into the transfer tank. Time lost is Terry lost.
As you complete quests, you can use the earned money to buy upgrades, but as you save up for these, you'll start to notice the game punches you in the fucking face again. The problem is, each time you buy an upgrade, the price increases. This will continue forever until the payment is fulfilled. I mean, every time you die, the game takes at least like 5k away from you depending on how much money you have. And now add on to that, in order to make my character not suck, I have to just triple the price that I'm spending. I don't know, I didn't like that. I encountered a few bugs too, which honestly surprised me considering this game's been out for fucking ever. Most of the bugs I saw involved enemies getting stuck in places they don't belong, but other than that, it wasn't major. I mentioned earlier how the side quests can sometimes feel unique. Unfortunately, that means I have to talk about the least favorite quest on my list. I fucking hate games that force you to do a holographic, cybernetic bullshit obstacle course mixed with fighting and an annoying character who doesn't shut her goddamn mouth. Yeah, I'm referring to the quest Transaction Pact. Here, players have to purposefully engage in repetitive gameplay loops while this stupid princess lady regurgitates the same lines over and over again. There's nothing wrong with making fun of other open-world cliches in video games, but the devs knew that this whole sequence didn't even need to happen. They just made it this stupid for the sake of a laugh. But nobody's laughing. Instead, I'm dragging ass and falling asleep. Ugh. Escort missions are the fucking worst. I also feel like there are too many bosses. While fighting Aurelia for the Hammerlock brothers, you're put up against these insane odds with bandits and psychos spawning everywhere while she throws fucking ice chunks at you. She's not intimidating nor interesting, and to make matters even worse, you fight the Grave Ward immediately after. Do you think that's enough? Some of the rewards aren't all that great either. This quest, the Great Vault, is super close to the endgame boss battle. So why the fuck am I pulling green loot at almost every container? I'm a level 35 gunner with tons of upgrades and perks, yet all I can find inside of this supposed Great Vault are a couple of pea shooters? Lame. Especially because this was immediately after killing Troy Calypso. What the fuck? So they're just not gonna give me anything worthwhile? That's cool. Stuff like that sometimes feels like a slap in the face, but just this once, I'm willing to give it a pass. You'll be broke before you ever make a dent in your character's progression with their gear, but at least you'll have ample opportunity to try out multiple firearms and get back into the more joyous side of the game. There are some memorable characters that I personally feel the need to talk about. You're familiar with Penn and Teller, two of the most iconic and possibly funniest men to ever walk the earth. Well, they're in this game. Penn plays a character named Pain, while Teller, staying true to his real-life silent character, portrays Terror, a small psychotic deity of carnage. He never speaks, but I just know that's Teller underneath that awkward character design. Talent comes in all shapes and sizes. These two have one of the most cinematic and enjoyable fights in the game with Carnivora. It's a massive vehicular event where a giant killing machine drives around the desert, partying and going absolutely hog wild. You have to literally chase the event as it's going on and put a stop to it. Vehicular combat isn't exactly this game's specialty, but wow, the Carnivora segment really shocked me. I was expecting it to be fucking awful, but the controls and combat itself, it was so fluent. Definitely one of my top 10 moments in Borderlands. Plus, fighting the one and only Penn and Teller is something only Borderlands could pull off. They have excellent showmanship and charisma when portraying villainous characters, which kinda makes me sad that they don't live all the way through to the end, but hey, that's showbiz, baby. There's an interesting series of enemies here in this third installment. I already talked about Jabbers, but I'm a really big fan of the Tyrants as well. They are, obviously, some form or species of dinosaur in this universe, minus the cute and cuddly versions. Tyrants are strong and can really fuck you up if you're not careful. Just look at what one orange tyrant did to our country with its disgusting tariffs. Now imagine fighting multiple orange tyrants in a confined space. Scary, isn't it? Anyway, I found out that there's also a new diverse enemy type known as the Guardians. They're kinda like, I don't know, the best comparison I can make is Bionicle, but I fucking hate banking on nostalgia. That's the closest description I have for them. They utilize all sorts of cool martial arts moves and retain a formal pattern of attack. Rarely do they attack one at a time, which makes them tougher than the standard psychopaths. The Guardians have a lot of Aztec-esque architecture in their environments, which is really cool and stands out from the more overgrown wildness of the worlds you're used to seeing. While raiding the different maps on different planets, keep an eye out for vault slabs. When activated, you'll get a brief summary of the lore, along with a large deposit of iridium to spend on goodies. Alright. Unfortunately, I've been nagging on, and I know that this review has been all over the place. Fans of my channel understand how that goes. But it's time to talk about the last frustrating feature I have with this gem. Though I said I love it, it still doesn't hold a flame anywhere near the second game's story and gameplay. But Borderlands 3 reminds me of Beta from Bob's Burgers. Yeah, I'm really going there. In the episode My Big Fat Greek Bob, Bob is tasked with making food for a failing college house full of nerdy guys who struggle with socialization and acceptance. In their house, they have a hollowed out lizard named Beta. Bob, upon first seeing Beta, doesn't understand why the guys love an animal that underwent taxidermy, nor does he see the point in engaging with it. However, it doesn't take long for Bob to be persuaded into loving Beta, even going so far as to save him from Dr. Yap's evil scheme later on. This is a very obscure reference, but I feel like at one point, I too was Bob, and Borderlands 3 was a hollowed out lizard that everyone else enjoyed, while I quietly and awkwardly stared at it, unable to form an opinion myself. Then, much like Bob after a few drinks and some guy time, I took one sip from the lizard and I understood its meaning. Today, I really like Borderlands 3. It's not for fans who are looking to partake in something more gripping or serious, nor is it for fans that enjoyed the previous titles, but it does a fantastic job at the simple things. I know that a lot of people fall victim to the whole Borderlands virus, and I saw an editorial from another great YouTuber about that specific issue, but I swear to God this isn't that. Borderlands 3 isn't the best game of the series. I'm never gonna call it that. But with its added gameplay technicalities and great roster of enemies, challenging events and locations, dynamic combat, it feels very much like it belongs here. I'm hopeful that Borderlands 4 isn't absolute dog shit, but ever since the developers announced that the game is going to cost $80 and that fans will pay for it because they love it mentality entered their corrupted fucking minds, I lost a lot of that hope. Video games used to be about having fun, and I know this sounds corny, but this was the last open world game that I had tons of fun in. Whether or not that's a testament to my taste, I don't care. Borderlands 3 is good, and I still play it on and off today. I really am glad you joined me for this little stupid video today, and I hope you enjoy the rest of whatever life has to offer us. Thanks again for watching, pal. I'll see you next time.